Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the Identity Human podcast. This is your host speaking, Don Armand. Not that that really matters because I just want you to listen to what I say and be critical in the thinking. So, what are we going to talk about tonight or today? Thank you very much for listening. We're talking about panic zone, stretch zone, comfort zone stretches. How are we taking ourselves out and trying to achieve things that we want to achieve and making sure that we keep the balance? I'm going to put in some scale. I'm going to put in some energy state there, some energy. So some of the models we've spoken about before, and make sure that we've got some golden threads going through this. But I'm really hoping that this gives you understanding and helps you achieve the things that you want to achieve and picks up some things that you have dropped off in the past. Or if you're about to start in something new, then it's going to help you. As well as if you work with a team, with your family, how much are you stretching those people around you by making them do stuff, and how can you keep the balance for them? So swinging that pendulum. Right, time for the jingle. This is what everyone's been waiting for. Nothing in me. Do. Welcome to the podcast with Don. We still haven't produced anything, and there's no rhyme there, but we're going to get it on. Look, we rhymed. Okay, here we go, guys. Time. I've bought the energy. I hope that this helps you. So I was really struggling for a topic tonight because there were so many options. I've just listened to a book called Breath, and fascinating. So I was going to do breath, but then I thought maybe let's not do breath yet. I want to explore that a little bit. But in case you didn't realize, I thought nutrition initially was important, and then I was like, actually no, it's sleep. And then I went into sleep, and sleep is really important. But actually, what do we do while we are awake and while we are asleep? We breathe. And it's fascinating because our modern day efficiency is not angled in at efficient breathing. And when you look at what happens with inefficient breathing and carbon dioxide, and you see, I'm getting into it. Don't. Let's not get into the breathing. That can be a whole separate podcast. I want to talk about panic zone, stretch zone, comfort zone. I was going to speak about all of the post-it notes I've got hanging on my computer because sometimes they're just really good mental structures, mental reminders. But maybe I'm just going to mention three. So for those of you that are listening in a rush and you're not really interested in too much detail, here's three that are going to stick out, right? Four maybe. Challenge limiting beliefs. So here's a definition of a bias that really helps me. A bias is something that is unsubstantiated. The world is surrounded, you are surrounded by people full of biases that will say things that are unsubstantiated because they will see it once and think that it applies to everything. Challenge biases. Challenge your own biases. We all have them. So challenge limiting beliefs within yourself and within others. Let's see what we can develop with the humans around us and the identity that we are really going to make sure we are that inner self we're going to explore. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Ooh la la. Give me some power on that. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Okay? So, are you wasting your time on self-development? Are you wasting your time listening to this podcast because Don talks about mentality and self-development? No, you're not. Because success follows good character. And if you're going to determine success by the money you're bringing in, well, good luck. Because there's something that I'm definitely learning is that money does not align with success on its own. So you can be a great character and not have money and people go, I'm not successful. But actually, I'd rather be a person that doesn't have money with good character than a person that has loads of money with bad character. Does that kind of put into context? Obviously, the ideal is be a person with good character and be a person with loads of money. And not because we're money driven, but because if you want to have an effect and you're a good person, when a good person has a lot of money, a good person does good things with said money. And there's a lot of examples for that. So let's make sure that we keep pushing that combination for us. Okay, we want to make sure we're having a good impact on ourselves, on the world. Start with yourself and really go deep. There are a few updates. I've come out of, before I get to comfort zone, stretch zone, I've come out of rugby really going, I'm going to make sure that I'm bigger out of rugby than I was in it. So I've got this ambition. I want to done a London Marathon, now training for another one, raise some money, really pushed my comfort zone out of whatever I used to think was my comfort zone. Like I've gone above and beyond, and people won't realize this. Like the amount of times I've had to really go, oh, this is hard. Do I really want to do it? And I've just done it, and it's been really rewarding on the other side of it. But I've now got to the point. So like Ray's quite driven. She's got things that she wants to achieve, and it's taken some massive self-reflection to get to this point where she's got some awesome things going on. I actually really love watching her achieve things. And I said to her this week, I said, you know, I've spent a year really trying to get things going, really trying to go, what's my purpose? Let's achieve it. And so is she. But what that does is like you're both stretching your comfort zones. You're both sometimes going to that panic zone. And when you're both there, it doesn't leave much room for support, patience, a loving environment, not loving environment, it's patient environment, somewhere where people can really understand each other. Go, do you know what? I can see you're going through a tough time right now. I'm here to listen. Because when you're both stretched, when one person goes through a tough time, the other one goes, well, what about me? And you start to compete, right? And I actually done some big self-reflection this week. And I said to her, I said, you know what? I thought I was supporting you. I thought I was putting you first and trying to achieve my things at the same time. But actually, I haven't been. So she spent 9 years, really being at every game that she could, really making sure that she was the best mom she could be, starting her own businesses and making sure, but that never got in the way of rugby. And I realize now, like, let me see how I can truly put this, if you want to call it servant leadership, but also not even that, is like, how can you truly support someone else in their endeavor without having to worry about your ego, your purpose, your ambition? Because I read somewhere like ambition can be a very dangerous thing to have if you don't understand it. And so I'm kind of going to this reflective phase where it's like, let's see if I can curb ambition and still find purpose. Does that make sense? Um, and maybe that's a reflection point for any of you listening. Is like, is your ambition getting in the way of you being able to see what's around you right now? And I actually, like I said it 2 days ago to Ren, I've really found myself in a much different space where nothing's changed in my day to day in terms of work and things I'm trying to do. But just by curving that like need to achieve, it's really dampened down that, like, not necessarily the pressure, but like that urgency to achieve things. And like I've noticed a whole lot more. I'm able to be a lot more patient, a lot more present, and that's quite rewarding because I'm quite looking forward to this. I'm quite looking forward to see, like, how can I be the best version of myself to allow a really great platform for Ray to come back to and really re-energize. And I think there'll be nothing more rewarding in 2 years' time where she's achieved huge things that she wants to achieve because of herself, because of what she does and what she brings. But in the background, there's that energy that I've been giving. There's that energy, that support and stuff that she was able to give for me in my career of rugby. And so that's where I'm at. So like that's just a bit of a personal update. Maybe that's more effective than anything else. And it does lead into, comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zone. And I think the principle of this is we all understand comfort zone. And you're like, oh, like I'm stretching myself in my comfort zone. But when we understand it at a slightly deeper level, and we just break it down. So 3 circles again, everything comes in threes, all the good things, right? The little circle surrounded by a bigger circle, surrounded by a bigger circle, but kind of stretch them into an oval shape. So you've got comfort zone on the left-hand side of the oval. Then you start to stretch these circles out to the right, if that makes sense. So they're misshapen slightly. But we all have our comfort zone. And then when we try things, we push ourselves into the stretch zone because we're stretching that comfort zone from we're stretching our comfort zone. We're bringing our chimp out of that comfort zone and asking to step. Like, let's say there's this island, this really nice warm island that the chimp has made its nest on, and it's like that's the comfort zone. It doesn't want to leave there, but we've got to will it to step into the cold water that's in the comfort in the stretch zone. So come on, chimp, let's go in the stretch zone. So this is where you put yourself out there, you try once, and then you go back, and you're like, oh, I tried that. It was interesting. I skydived, but I'm never going to do it again. And then you've got beyond that stretch zone is the panic zone. And if you put people in the panic zone, that's when you get so much more susceptible to stress. So that's when you put yourself into that panic zone, means you're more susceptible, you're less resilient because it's so far away from your comfort zone that if you're not super prepared, if you don't have this ultimate desire, like I've said in that consistency model we've spoken about before, if you don't have this desire to push through this panic zone to make it part of your stretch zone, what actually ends up happening is your comfort zone shrinks. And this is a really important concept. If you are leading people, if you're leading your family, if you're leading yourself especially, like if you are putting yourself in that panic zone too long, your comfort zone shrinks. And when your comfort zone shrinks, eventually you'll go back there and it'll be even harder for you to come back out. So I wanted to link in scale here. So we're going to have to understand scale is really important, and everyone's scale is different. So where you are able to stretch yourself to a certain point, someone else may not be. But we often think that because I did it, you can do it, right? We need to be able to understand where someone is at in their current journey. Now, the next bit is about understanding our energy state. And I know I've spoken about an energy state before, and it's just like how much internal energy are you putting into stretching your comfort zone, stretching yourself in the panic zone. And you can go in that panic zone, but if you stay in there, it's going to drain your energy a lot quicker. And once we run out of, I don't know, energy, if you're buying into this analogy, that's when you become susceptible. That's when the comfort zone shrinks. So what we have to do is find that balance between dipping in and out of comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zone, comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zone, and not spending too much time in any of those circles mentally. Now, Don, this is great in theory. It's really good there. I really like the concept, but how do I identify when I'm pushing myself and I'm not pushing myself, and how do I do it? It's just like it's when you feel the resistance coming and you can move through it quite quick. That is me. That's like stretch zone. So when you're trying to get into the ice bath and there's like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. That's kind of stretch zone. That's fine because you feel good afterwards. It's great. But the panic zone is kind of like when you start to fear getting into the ice bath, as an example. But you can take away ice bath and let's go work. Like when work is tough for you to go into, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to sit down and I'm really going to have to focus here. That's stretch zone. There's nothing wrong with being stressed in the stretch zone. You have to be able to go into panic sometimes, be able to get stressed sometimes because your body is resilient, right? Your body will react. Your body, like we're survivors. Human beings are made to survive. So don't be scared of that little bits of stress. It's what happens. It becomes detrimental is when you stretch too far and you go too long in those panic zones and those stretch zones. So what I want us to think is um, panic zone identifiers is when you're going into work and you're dreading going into work and you're thinking about work all the time and it's really stretching you. It's like um, how do we make sure that we're not staying there too long? So someone that's listened to the podcast live, I have a great community. They've sent a diagram, so which has really helped. Is they go there's comfort zone, fear zone, learning zone, and growth zone. So it's interesting that it comes across like that. Is they've put where I've put panic zone because I've seen this model before and I think it really relates. What this shows me is if you don't have an empowered mindset and you're coming out of comfort zone, you're going to be stretching yourself and you're going to be panicking. And if you stay in that panic zone, you're going to shrink your comfort zone and it's going to be harder to come out of there. This is why it's important to empower our mindset and make it a choice. So it's about, for me, do we have the desire to grow? Do we have the desire to want to stretch ourselves? Do we have the desire to be stressed because we're going to be resilient? If we do, then everything I've spoken about now here becomes a lot easier. I think where this becomes really pertinent, where it becomes useful in terms of the comfort zone, stretch zone, and panic zone, is when we don't have the desire to grow, when we don't have the desire to push ourselves, but other people or environment forces us to do it. So work's a good example. Let's just say you're comfortable in the job and all of a sudden your boss, the person that's in charge says, right, these are the new things that we're going to do. And they start to do a whole lot of change. They like your new KPIs are this. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. If you don't have that desire, that's going to stretch you. That's going to stress you. And we've got to make sure that we understand the longer you stay in the panic zone, the more it's going to stretch you, and the more it's going to stress you. So if you are leading other people, if you are in and recognizing some of these aspects, understand it's okay. That's when you need to go back out of the panic zone, back into your comfort zone, scale things down for a little bit, reassess how you're doing things, and then desire yourself up. Now, the diagram that got sent to me kind of evolves into this, and I really like it. So if you have the desire and you want to grow and you want to do that, means that all of these elements start to become a little bit easier. So you've got comfort zone, then you've got fear zone, and you've got learning zone, and you've got growth zone. And I think this is where understanding is important. So I've just told you these two models, but two circles, but you've got to understand growth zone and panic zone are in the same area. So I want that to sink in. Growth zone and panic zone are in the same area. So my understanding, I've only just been shown this, is I think it, and that really is, it's very true, because where you can grow the most is where some people can panic. And if you can change your viewpoint on panic to growth, you will grow. So if you don't believe what I'm saying and you think, Don, you're full of nonsense, Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist, now I'm appealing to authority. Damn, what am I doing? Why am I going down this pathway? Because sometimes actually people that study neuroscience and they've got case studies behind them, they're a good source of information. It doesn't mean that they're right in everything. Critically think for yourself. But he literally gave an example where people that are stressed will either grow through stress or they'll shrink through stress. And the only thing that changes is how they see that stress. So it's about understanding, like, you've got to change the perspective. And so it's these two circles I'm talking about. If you've got comfort zone all the way out to panic zone, or you've got comfort zone all the way out to growth zone, the growth and the panic are in the same space. What changes? Like, Don, how do I get that growth zone if that's where the panic zone? Do I have to start to panic to grow? Well, in a way, yes, but you have to know how to navigate that. Is you don't want to go out there and panic and be out of control, but you want to go and, like, skydiving is a really good example. Go to clip and climb and climb the highest thing that you can climb if you're scared of heights. That you're going to see you're in panic zone here. But if you intentionally go, I want to go into that panic zone because I want to be curious about how my body feels, you're going to grow. You're going to have done the same thing, but you're going to grow. And I used clip and climb. I did the other day with my kids. The first time I went there, they've got these 3 green pillars. Not 3, why did I say 3? They've got these green pillars that get higher and higher and wobblier and wobblier. The first time I did it, I didn't realize how scary that was. And they wobbled. As you get to like 4 from the top, 3 from the top, they really wobble. And then you get to the top, and this whole time your chimp's like, you're going to die, you're going to die, oh my goodness, you're going to die. It doesn't know you're going to rope to you. And it's like, listen, I'm here to survive, and bro, you're taking me over the edge. So the chimp was panicking. I left there going, flip, that was scary. Then I went back there a week ago, and I was like, I'm going up there again, and I'm going to do better, because I know that if I take myself into that panic zone with an empowered mindset, it's going to change how I come out of it. So some of the other elements that we can mentally empower ourselves with this comfort zone, stretch zone, all these things I've been speaking about, might be getting a bit confusing, is in the comfort zone is where you feel safe and in control. I think we can recognize that. In the fear zone is where you're affected by other people's opinions, you find excuses, and you have a lack of self-confidence. So this is where you start to stretch, and you think in the other one, you start to stretch out if you've got lack of self-confidence. This is where I'm saying, like, we really need to build ourselves up. The success is something that you attract by the person you become. Is, are you building up your character on top of doing these other things that are stretching yourself? And do you realize that when you stretch yourself, you're building your character? So you move through this fear zone a lot quicker when you're aware of these things. When excuses come up, it's because your chimp doesn't want to leave the comfort zone. Where you start to learn is like, learning is like, be open towards challenges and problems. Now, if you remember a couple of episodes again, and if you haven't listened to it, I'm going to direct you to it, is the above the line, below the line thinking. And that's episode 13. Essentially, being open towards challenges and problems is above the line. That's a mental state that you're going to have to keep yourself in. So go and listen to episode 13 and understand the principles of what above the line is. That's going to keep you in learning zone automatically, just because you've educated yourself. Some of the other points are expand your toolbox. Essentially, go and listen to my podcasts, guys. All of them are just tools that will empower you, and I'll just start to repeat them soon. Stay curious. That's a big one, because the curiosity keeps the balance between knowing what you know and learning. And we want to make sure we're staying curious, because you've done a lot of work, you know your stuff, but you're never going to know everything. So stay curious, because you're always going to learn something. When you can learn something, you're open to it. When you're open to something, you can grow. Now, then the growth zone is like, it's where you're willing to go for your dreams. It's where you can find your purpose, set your new goals. And I think it kind of explains itself. And I think if you can get above the line, if you can understand these things, you will stay in a growth mindset for longer. And that's where we want to be. We don't want to be fixed. Don't want to be on your biases. So without overcomplicating it, I think that's the main gist of what I wanted to speak about tonight. Is Success is something you attract by the person you become. So you're going to have to start to stretch your comfort zones. In order to stretch your comfort zones, you're going to have to understand scale and your energy state. And you don't want to get yourself into panic zone, panic stretch, panic, because you're going to be using up a lot of energy. And that's going to shrink your comfort zone, which is going to make it even harder to start getting out of it again. So stay curious, stay above the line, but be kind to yourself. Don't try and be perfect. Don't try and achieve something in 3 months that needs to be achieved in a year. There's no rush. Life is precious. Every day is a gift. That doesn't mean you have to achieve everything in one day. It means take it as it comes. Enjoy the journey. Look up. Listen to the birds. Try and be curious about the small things, because they are going to make sure that you're not losing sight of where your feet are, what's in the now, and the vision, the thing, the ambition that you're trying to achieve, that's in the future. And as long as you know that that's in the future, everything you do will lead you towards that one way or another. And you're not going to be able to control that as much as you think. This is what I'm learning. That's what I'm learning. And then let me see. I said 3 things that I was going to read out on my post-it note, and which ones are going to help you the most. This one. Treat people unbelievably well, and they will do the same to you. Right? Let's be brave. Let's start to treat people unbelievably well and watch how that comes back to you. It doesn't mean that everyone you treat unbelievably well is going to come and treat you unbelievably well, but the more people you can treat unbelievably well, the more people are going to treat you unbelievably well. Have some faith in that. Like, let's go after it. Start to be brave, start to be courageous, start to be the person that does good things for others, even if you know you're not getting anything back. Let's see what it's like to truly be supportive of other people's dreams and watch how your dreams come true. But remember this, I will work on me for you and you work on you for me. Okay? It's a really important concept to have, is I may be supporting you, but I'm not at my detriment. I can still support you and make sure that I'm in the right place. Okay, it's just a mindset space. Anyway, that is 22 minutes and we're done. I'm happy with what I've said. It may not have had the best flow, but it needs to be out there. That message needs to be out there. Whether it's for me to listen to myself and take a note away from, then that's kind of all that matters, really. Whether you get something out of this, that's amazing. I've had some really good feedback on some of the episodes from a few of the listeners, and it's really, really rewarding. But I don't want that to put pressure on myself that every episode has to be effective. It doesn't. 1 episode in 100 can be effective. That's more than enough for me. So thank you very much for listening, guys and girls. I really, 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 really appreciate you, and I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful for you and everything you guys do in being part of this community, in just giving some of your time to listen. And that's why I will always strive to give you as much value as I can in as least a produced way as possible. So thanks for listening. Remember, Ubuntu, we are who we are through others. Have a great week, and we will see you around. See you in a week's time.